Alright, we're back. We're talking FF7, we're talking Remake Part 3, and we are talking summons. Summons are one of my favorite aspects of the Final Fantasy series, and really any RPG that offers some kind of summoning mechanic, whether that was like a Necromancer back in the day in Diablo 2, or like a Mage in World of Warcraft. In some of more recent years, we have like Skyrim where you can be a jack of all trades, but there is the Conjuration skill tree. Even Elder Scrolls Online with the Sorcerer class where you can have like the minions fight alongside you. I always kind of chalk this up to Pokemon. Growing up playing Pokemon Red, probably the first RPG that I ever played. And there's something about being like, I don't know, your own character, but you throw out these like monsters to fight with you. I don't know. It's always appealed to me when it came to any RPG I've played after that. Even if it's just essentially a singular attack that you do in something like FF7, Final Fantasy IX, even Final Fantasy Tactics, the Summoner class is one of my favorite classes in that game. Also Final Fantasy VIII, where the summons or the Guardian Forces are still just individual attacks, but there's obviously unique mechanics to the Guardian Forces, but they do also block incoming damage as they're being summoned. But my favorite to this day is still probably FF10, where the Aeons are essentially additional party members. You do get rid of the rest of the party when you summon an Aeon, but they do fight by themselves. They have turns. You can increase their stats. You can give them abilities. Not to take anything away from the Remake series summons, because they're probably in the running for my favorite right alongside FF10, because they are additional party members, but they don't take away from the party, right? You throw them out there. They're just an extra body on board doing damage. You can even issue attacks to them. I like the summons even more in Rebirth because you get a bit of lore to each of the summons as you get to the different regions, and you can power them up with like the summon crystals, the divine intel. There are still aspects of the remake summons that I don't like, of course, that we talked about a lot on the channel over the years. The biggest one being that they're mostly tied to Chadley, and in Rebirth it's entirely a Chadley thing, right? In Remake it's kind of weird because they did have a lot of them being tied to Chadley in the simulator VR stuff, right? And that was kind of fine because it's the first game in the Remake trilogy, and with the original FF7 we don't get summons in Midgard at all. So I can kind of forgive them a bit. I certainly wouldn't say I'm a fan of it or anything, but it can be somewhat forgiven in the first Remake game, right? But the thing is, with Remake, you can acquire some summon materia outside of Chadley. You're given the Ifrit materia by Jesse in FF7 Remake, of course, and then you can also find the Chocomog materia in Chapter 6. This deep into the Remake trilogy, we're 2 games in and also a DLC, those are the only 2 summon materia that you can get outside of Chadley, and I don't know why that is. Why do they go the route of allowing us to get the Ifrit materia from Jesse and find the Chocobo and Moogle materia in the world, and then take that away from us in Rebirth? They had it in Remake, but they don't have it in Rebirth. It's very fucking weird. I do praise some of the stuff they added in Rebirth for the summons, like the ability to power them up and get a bit of lore from them. The Crystal minigame is honestly kind of fucking boring. I almost want to say like they're tedious, but they're not, because they're very, very quick. It's just hit the buttons and it shows you, and then that's all you gotta do. Boom, minigame's over. And like I think I failed maybe 1 or 2 of the Odin ones, and like maybe 1 of like the Neo Bahamut ones, whatever his fucking name is in Rebirth, right? Like they weren't complicated at all. They're just kind of there. I do them, of course, because I want to power up my summons and make them better, but they're just kind of like a nuisance. They're just another thing to check off on the world intel shit. To be honest, in the marketing for Rebirth, when we were told that you could power up the summons, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was thinking some level of a progression system, kind of like the upgrade system that we have in Rebirth, or maybe even like the weapon core system that we had in Remake. I definitely think that's something they could improve going into the next game for the summons, if they're going to allow us to continue powering up summons, is do something else. Something else entirely. I don't know. It doesn't have to be a complicated system. It doesn't have to be like the fucking sphere grid from FF10, right? It can be a very linear system, but I would much rather like progress the summons in a better way than whatever the hell it was in Rebirth. It could simply be like the summons gain XP by being used in battle, so that there's a bit of a grind to it, right? You got to actually like earn your summon bar and actually use it in fights to make the summon stronger over time. Or I don't know. It's a wild theory here, but maybe the summon materia gains fucking AP like it did in the original FF7. Why are we skipping that in the Remake trilogy? Honestly, the easiest answer, you equip a summon materia to a character. That character kills a monster, gains experience, gains AP. That AP goes to the summon materia like it does any other fucking materia. Once it goes up to the next level, that summon then becomes a little bit stronger, and it lasts longer in fights. I don't know why they went the route they did in Rebirth when they had a fucking simple answer based on the original Final Fantasy VII that they could do. Almost like they just wanted more or needed more for the world intel shit with Chadley, and like to fill out the world, to flesh out the world, they wanted to make those summon caves, right? To add more to the world to discover and find, but they're boring. I'd almost rather them not be there, and I just level up my summon materia like I do any other materia. I'd be totally fine too if they wanted to make it like where it's a bit of a grind to level up a summon materia, because to be honest, even like a default materia like we had in Remake where you can't progress them at all, they're still useful in fights and boss fights and stuff. They're still, putting extra damage on the boss, which is nice, especially for hard mode. And to be honest, like the progression system that they have in Rebirth is nothing, right? If you know where the caves are already, the hardest part of leveling up a summon materia in Rebirth is the fucking travel time, the load time. That's the most complicated part, because the minigame takes like fucking 10 or 20 seconds. It's fucking pointless, dude. Also, they only had a progression to the new materials that were in Rebirth. You could get some of your old material that you had in Remake, right? Like Ifrit and stuff like that. But Why would you use those materials when you can't improve them? We're kind of in a weird spot, too, going into Remake Part 3, because there's not a lot of summons left from the original FF7, right? Because they've used most of them for Remake and Rebirth. With Remake, you had, obviously, Chocobo and Moogle, Fat Chocobo, Leviathan, Shiva, Ifrit, and Bahamut. Rebirth had Titan, Phoenix, Alexander, Kuyata, Bahamut Arisen, and Odin with the secret Gilgamesh. Going into the third game now, we only have 4 summon materials left. We have Hades, Typhoon, or Typhoon if you want to be correct, I guess, Bahamut Zero, and Knights of the Round. And I know going into the next game, we don't have like a ton of the world left because we've explored most of it with Rebirth, and there's only 4 summon material left, so maybe they'll have one of them in the Wutai area. That's somewhere we haven't gone yet. We have the northern kind of snowy area. Maybe there'll be one there. I don't know which one specifically. Then we have like the Benora kind of Midil area, like south of the Midgar continent or whatever. And then the fourth one, I don't know. Like Knights of the Round was obviously in a hidden island in the original FF7, so maybe they still stick to that. Maybe there's an island out there in the water that we can either just go to and get the Knights of the Round, or maybe it's a story-related stuff like people are hoping. I don't entirely know. Bring that up, though, because I'm hopeful they'll add more new summon material in the next game, right? Because 4 is a little bit underwhelming. I'm assuming they'll have the majority of the summons we have so far up to the second game in the third game by default, kind of like they did with Remake, right? We got most of the summons from Remake by default in the second game. I don't know if they're going to give all of them to us. They probably wouldn't give us Gilgamesh. I say that because they didn't give us, Bahamut by default when it came to Rebirth. Gilgamesh was like a nice addition because he's a fun character and he's never been a part of FF7, so I was happy to get him finally. It wasn't really a surprise because even before we knew Gilgamesh was going to be in the game, that was a speculation, right? People were talking about the possibility of him being like the new summon. And once you see him in the trailer, it was pretty dead certain that that was going to be what the new summon was, right? And he's been a summon in the past in other games as well. So what you do beyond that going into the next game for brand new summons to FF7, I don't really know. We've talked about summons before. I've talked about mostly just summons that I like. I think like Fenrir's a good guess just because it has a relation to Cloud, of course, with stuff like Avid Children. But beyond that, it's really hard to guess, right? Because do they just pull from, other summons in the history of the Final Fantasy series that have never been a part of FF7, like Famfrit or something, or like Adramelech, I don't know, a Thomas, those kinds of summons. You pull from something like Final Fantasy X, where there's a bit of crossover between FF7 and FF10, right? So it wouldn't be that big of a stretch to have a summon from that game in this game. Or do you just come up with a brand new summon? And I'm kind of in both those camps. Like, it'd be kind of cool to see, like, I don't know, like FF10's Bahamut or Yojimbo or Anima, of course, my favorite summon of all time, being in the FF7 Remake trilogy. But I'd kind of be up for them doing some sort of brand new summons. I don't know what you do, though. Obviously, it's hard to speculate. I can't come up with a brand new goddamn summon for Square Enix. That's on them. And to be honest, the Anima thing's not even really a stretch, considering there's already a pretty heavy allusion to Anima in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I would lose my fucking shit if Anima was in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. I don't care if it doesn't make any sense. It's fucking Seymour's mom's faith. I don't care. I don't want to know how it even got here. It makes as much sense as Genova. Genova came from outer space. The fucking lore or the description, if you assess it, could simply be, comes from another planet. Origins unknown. It crash landed on the planet thousands of years ago. It doesn't have to make any sense. Nobody cares. I just want it in my game. I just want Anima. The fucking Gi tribe in Rebirth created the black materia, right? So maybe they created an evil summon materia, or maybe it's some sort of offshoot of Genova in FF7. You could give it all kinds of fucking lore and purposes if you wanted to. I don't need it. I just want it in the game. But truly above everything else when it comes to the summon materia in the next game, what I really want is for Chadley to fuck off. Get out of my game. I don't want you anywhere near my summon material. I don't want to hear the word summon out of Chadley's motherfucking mouth in the next game. Don't say it. Do not talk about summons at all. Do not talk about divine crystals and summon intel and whatever the fuck else terms that Chadley might say that even vaguely hint towards the idea of a summon. Go away. I mean, I'm joking, but also not joking, because I definitely don't want the summons attached to Chadley at all. Why can't we just find them in the world? Hopefully with these last couple of summons, maybe the potential new summons that could be in the next game, they're just things we find in the world. They don't have to be attached to Chadley. We could find them in the world, then maybe then beyond that, we go through Chadley to power them up. And that might be a nice middle ground if they want to still include Chadley in the next game, I guess. Whatever. But let me at least find the shit in the world. Let me go to this cave over here that's hidden and it's fucking hard to get to. Maybe I gotta fly the fucking airship, the goddamn Highwind over there to a specific spot that it's kind of hidden, but you can land the airship there, or you can rappel down from the airship. There's a fucking hidden grove or something, or a fucking cave, and at the end of it we fight a boss, and behind that goddamn boss is Knights of the Round or Hades or Typhoon or something. I don't know. Please, for the love of God, let me find a secret for once. I need to calm down a little bit. I'm getting a little heated. This goes even really beyond the summons when it comes to the next game, because I do want hidden stuff, secrets. Please, for the love of God, you're giving us world traversal with the Highwind. Let me find something that's not a fucking POI or part of world intel. It's just marked on the map. Please go here type shit. I want to be somewhere that I'm not supposed to be. You know, this would be kind of cool, and this is just a random thing I thought of right here towards the end of the video, is if they would allow us to control the summons. You summon them, they're obviously on the field fighting with us. If you could tab over to them, and just fight with them. Like, I want to tab over to fucking Titan, and I want to punch something so hard it explodes. I know mechanically it might not work for certain ones, like Leviathan that's so fucking massive, or like Bahamut that's like flying around and shit, but I think with some of them, maybe the more humanoid ones, it'd be kind of cool if you could control them. But of course, that's where I pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on summons going to the next game? How do you think they're going to be maybe altered or improved? Or are they going to change up the progression system by chance? When it comes to the summons that are left, Hades, Typhoon, my favorite way to pronounce it, Bahamut Zero, or Knights of the Round, where do you think we're going to locate those at? What particular regions do you think each one of those are going to be found in? Because we still have the snowy kind of northern area with like Icicle and Great Glaciers, stuff like that. We have the Wutai area, and then we have the Benora kind of Medill area. Those are, I think, all three a lock for a particular summon. I just don't know which ones would be in each area. Knights of the Round, I do think will have something special to it because it's such an iconic summon from the original Final Fantasy VII. Is that going to be a story-related thing? Is that going to be like an intricate side quest or optional thing or hard mode thing? I don't know entirely, but I do think there's going to be something special with Knights of the Round. So I think the other three will be in those other locations, right? Maybe. But then it's just a matter of which summon is in what particular region. Anyways, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect, we spend it with no shame, we blow that like Coltrane, we in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.